Well, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain. So,
good morning. I'm Neota Igbe.
Today is September 26th. It's a Tuesday morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde, and let's begin the papers here this morning. We have Wale Fatade with us. He is former assistant managing editor, Next newspaper, and is commissioning editor, The Conversation Africa. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Well, it's been a while, right?
Yeah. I think May 2022 was the last time I was there. No thanks to the road construction and.
Well, you decided to abandon also our faith. Well, we are here.
No, I hope those who have been agitating will see my face now that I come when I'm invited and when it works for me.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about, seasons one way or the other. Because this Nigerian newspaper this morning seems to be looking at something similar. This Nigeria, the lead story on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper is talking about diphtheria. Diphtheria claims 453 lives in 18 states. That's it is ascribed to the federal government, and it says Kano tops list with 6,183 cases, Yobe 640, Katsina 213, Borno 95, Kaduna 16, Jigawa 14, and 12 other states, including the FCT. Certainly something very worrisome, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's sad that, by the way, I remember an interview I had with Professor Oyewale Tomori, a virologist, a retired WHO top official. And it's sad that, because it's been on since last year, silently, and diphtheria is still preventable through vaccination. There's a DPT. That's the sad thing. So it shows that perhaps the gains we have recorded in our vaccination program are being reversed. That's why it's worrisome. And it's across the nation now. I think about 26, or how many states now?
Well, according to this report, it said 18 states.
18 states, yeah.
And a number of others, here and there.
It's moving on silently.
Well, still talking numbers, at the bottom of the page, Appeal Court has 39,523 pending cases, says Justice Dongben Mensem, and says FCT reform, Wike urges support from judiciary. 39,526 cases in the Appeal Court alone.
Yeah, basically lawyer friends I've spoken with about this. There are 2 or 3 things we could do or we should do. We should appoint more judges. The dockets of those ones that are serving are full. And then number 2, there must be an end to litigation. So how many cases should get to the appeal court? You must have a stop. Not all cases should get to Supreme Court. So that's what we have. We just have to decentralize. I mean, why I got a lawyer friend, and I hope he's listening now. He's a senior advocate. He's always been canvassing for decentralizing Supreme Court. That there should be Supreme Court in the 6 zones, the way we have appeal courts in different zones. So I hope we'll get there, because there's no way we can do that.
Yeah, quite a number of them have been talking about that, actually.
Yeah, so, and I think there was actually a session on that at the last NBA annual conference. So I think we should look into that. 32,000. I think I watched the leadership or lordship, whichever way, yesterday, and you must feel for them. Yeah. And then the way and manner judges still operate. Thank God for what we have in Lagos State, where you have electronic recording system. I'm not sure it's available across the federation. And so they still do right judgments longhand. It's tough.
I guess we'll wait to see. That's this Nigerian newspaper this morning, guys. Let's take a look at Vanguard newspaper next here this morning. They focus on insecurity. Zamfara governor alleges FG in secret talks with bandits. They've got a host of riders here. The first of which says vows not to negotiate with bandits. Presidency keeps mum. 7 abducted Zamfara varsity students. 3 construction workers rescued by troops. And then total number of students rescued now 13. So about this negotiation with bandits, but the fact that it's on the front page, this disagreement between the state and FG, what do you make of it?
I think that does a great disservice to attempts at securing lives in Zamfara. And you know, Zamfara has been in the news apart from the gold mining and the other illegal mining activities taking place. I think for the governor to have come out and say this, it's so bad. And I'm not sure. I can't just wrap my head around it. When the news broke yesterday evening, I wept inside me. This has done a lot to damage whatever talks that the federal government might be holding with bandits. And I think in Zamfara, I think it's an APC person that is the governor. I should think so. And so if there are internal party politics or party issues, it should not be brought into this place. Those students that were kidnapped by the Federal University in Gusau, I mean, they are still out. Fine, some have been rescued. What about the rest? This is bad and should be condemned. Whatever issues you have, there are proper channels you could raise this. I mean, the governor must have direct access to the National Security Advisor. He must have access to the president himself. This is very bad. Very bad. It should be condemned, this statement.
So, now the thing is, I mean, he's a PDP governor, actually.
Oh, he's a PDP governor, but that's
now the fact that, yeah, so, but the fact that if this is, I mean, as it's on the front page, it must have been quoted. So if FG is going ahead and negotiating with bandits, and the state governor has maintained that they will not negotiate with bandits, different perspective here. Some may think, well, if FG was going ahead to do that, why didn't FG even talk to him? Because he's the chief security officer of the state, and that may, in other words, probably either undermine or weaken the overall efforts to ensure security of lives and property, first and foremost, of people in Zamfara, because he has to play a huge role as well to ensure that FG's efforts don't go in vain.
Kimberly, we can, I'm not a staff of the National Security Advisor's Office. I don't work with Malam Nuri, but whom I've not seen for almost 10 or 12 years. But I think it is bad. I'm still insisting that. I mean, whatever he's doing, the evidence stares all of us in the face. There are problems in Zamfara. The UCOM members that were kidnapped over a month ago, nearly 2 months August, they have not been rescued. I mean, nearly a day passes that we do not have issues of bandits attacking villagers or kidnapping people in Zamfara. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know. Perhaps the National Security Advisor Office themselves could not trust him. Perhaps he's complicit in something, we are not sure. But I'm still insisting, whatever issues you might have, channel that through the appropriate medium. You don't come on the air and blow this out of proportion. This has done incalculable damage to that prosecution of the bandits, or trying to arrest or trying to rescue those that have been kidnapped.
So now, if this were the case, does it then mean, because I think, if I remember properly, I think the same NSA also was quoted some report saying ransom or funds paid to bandits were used to fund terrorism. Now, if this headline is the case, FG negotiating with bandits, do we then say that this is the formal thing now? Government negotiates with bandits, contrary to what many who would have thought, that the position of FG is that we do not negotiate with bandits.
Terrorists. Foreign governments, national governments across the world maintain we don't negotiate with terrorists. But you and I as journalists know that's a lie. Even the United States government, they use back channels, they call it. They talk to terrorists, they talk to kidnappers. And for me, I think whatever we could do as a country to rescue those that have been kidnapped. I mean, the last time you brought that gentleman from NYC on your show, I think about 2 weeks or whatever, I nearly smashed my screen. Yeah. Because it was when he was arguing that it's because the guy is not the direct father, he's a guardian, whatever. And I said, does this gentleman know what it takes to produce a university graduate? And somebody trying to come in from Akwa Ibom or Cross River, and you waylay them, you kidnap them, no information, nothing. No, I think for me, the idea that we don't negotiate or we don't pay ransom, you and I know that's not correct. That's the official position maintained outside, but there are negotiations at the back that take place. And it has been happening right from the time of was this late general that died, Azazi, down to the gentleman, the one that was arrested under President Buhari. Dasuki, different successive national security advisors. We have been negotiating with terrorists. We know that.
Okay, well, look at this beneath this lead story. Even though, yes, we see strike FG will soon conclude wage awards to workers ascribed to the Minister of Works. But how about this one? Tinubu has not reintroduced fuel subsidy This is ascribed to the APC. They seem to be replying one of Atiku's media aides who had said that the government had introduced fuel subsidy through the back door. But now the APC says no such thing.
I think there is so much opaqueness in the way fiscal policies are being introduced now, not to talk about monetary policy. So I really don't know whether we have subsidy or not. But what we just know is that the fuel prices are going on, crude oil prices rather, are rising globally, whether it's $100 or $120 per barrel now. And that must have a corresponding or concomitant increase on our fuel prices. So how have we been able to keep it at this level? The government should come out and tell us. And I do not think it's the APC that should be responding to that. There are spokespersons maintained at different levels for the federal government, for the president, for the vice president. They should respond to that. And I think the Minister of Finance actually has the Minister of Finance has the media apparatus there too. So it's not a party affairs now. This is government. Politics is over.
All right, that's Vanguard today.
Yeah, Mr. Fatade, we still need to clarify some things. When a party is in power and when a government is in the office,
that's all.
We need to balance out when the party speaks and when the government speaks. Well, good morning to you.
But the officials, the president and co, they are no longer for APC now. They are for all of us who are citizens of Nigeria, and that's important. We must keep that in perspective always.
Indeed. All right, let's look at New Telegraph here and what they lead with. They have this story tied to security. Customs intercepts 1.64 billion explosive device materials. Others, that's what they lead with. And with these riders, seizes armored bullion van without end-user certificate, arrests 9 smugglers. Poverty, insecurity, bad leadership, bane of Nigeria's development, ACF chair. So now this, we're just talking about that matter in Zamfara, the discordant tones coming from state government and the federal government that should be working together to rescue those people. And customs intercepts this. So what's your take on that?
Now, how do you ship in bullion van, armed bullion van? That's strange. And our customer has to intercept that. But you and I know the level of small and light weapons or light arms that are in circulation in our country is huge. We have a problem with the Sahel, we have a problem with right down from Libya, and so we have problems with Niger Delta, and these are people that have humongous resources, whether it's the Al-Qaeda in West Africa, and what are the other groups that are operating there. So we are in a big mess, And by the way, these are the ones that we know. I presume, without taking anything away from our custom guys, that some would have slipped into Nigeria without being detected, and that's scary.
Oh, well, okay. So this matter, you mentioned the issue of the proliferation of small arms in the country. One will wonder, for you to even begin to import an armored vehicle or treated vehicle, personal use, you need to get the clearance of the NSA.
Must give you an end-user certificate before you can do that. I know. So, who got that? I mean, the bullion van did not just drop from the skies. It's been coming from, you can track the movement of every vessel, every ship. So what happened?
Well, let's leave it and look at this other one. Yesterday, there was that news of the fire in the Supreme Court, and they have this story here. PDP cries foul as fire got section of Supreme Court judge's chamber with the riders. Incident has nothing to do with presidential poll petition. Apex Court, PCA, 39,526 cases pending before Apex Court, before appeal court. So that ties into yesterday the appeal court resumed the legal year, and then this matter happened again yesterday. There are a lot of speculations out there as to how this relates to all the petitions that are around the country, both presidential and governorship and all.
The best way, politicians will always play politics. The best way is let there be a thorough investigation, and then let's have the report of the investigation to be made public. That's all. But as I was driving to your studio this morning, I was racking my brain, thinking that for all those high-profile fire incidents, how many of them do we actually have the reports of what happened? And I was asking myself, was the Supreme Court building insured? So if there was building or fire insurance, the insurance people would have investigated before claims are paid. So do we get to know anything that happened subsequently? That's important. But then the insinuation that has to do with the matter being filed, that's ridiculous. I don't think that should not have anything to do. But then look at what I said again, 90-something thousand cases before Supreme Court. I was in the chambers of a lawyer last week or 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me of a matter he has had at Supreme Court since 2004 that they just got judgment this year. And the original litigant, by the way, has actually passed on.
All right. So that's it from the New Telegraph. Thank you so much.
Very interesting. The Guardian newspaper this morning is talking money as usual, and look at but straight to the CBN. Cardoso faces Senate under FX pressure, loss of confidence. Stories on page 6, and then the issues Cardoso has to deal with: spiking inflation, volatile exchange rate, $6.8 billion backlog, contentious 22.7 trillion naira ways and means advances, ambiguous external reserves, falling bank adequacy ratio, high interest rate. But the image on the front page beside Cardoso is quite interesting. It's the 1,000 naira note eating into, well, the dollar eating into the 1,000 naira note, or the other way around. I don't know. What do you make of this story?
By the way, kudos to the gentleman who assumed the position of editor of the Guardian.
We're still waiting for clearance from the Senate.
Yeah, I'm talking about the gentleman, the editor. Beautiful, beautiful graphic.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And I like that. Well, by the way, I thought that the government was going to, the president was going to appoint somebody who do not have links with banks. That is probably an economist that has no nexus with banks. But fine as it may, the president has made an appointment, and the gentleman has actually assumed duties on Friday, so he's being screened by the Senate today. And I think all of us know that. I'm sure all of us know rather there is no screening; it will be confirmed. So we should have better take Mr. Cardoso as our CBN governor. But the other thing for me, and I think the story in the Guardian spelled it out. Maintaining the exchange rate stability, I think that's a major issue for our central bank governor. How he does that, I don't know. And in as much as inflation is very high, I think the issue of poverty and the high unemployment rate, they are crucial more than inflation. If we can't get more people to have jobs, most likely we can bring down inflation when people have more money to spend. And then, for me again, he has to assert his independence. The last governor, we all saw that. He was tied to the apron string of the president. He was always calling in and out of the Aso Rock. We don't need that. You do not send confidence. You don't show confidence to investors or to foreigners when your CBN governor has an incestuous link with the president. And I think even while we have the CBN Act of 2007 that specified the way we can appoint the CBN governor or the way we can remove him, I think we need to take it away from the hands of just one person appointing a CBN governor. That's crucial. Kenya, for instance, actually advertises for the CBN position. Their central bank governor position, they advertise. And I'm not sure the current Bank of England governor is a Canadian. He's not English. And so we should seek the best hand. I think the way and manner we appoint the INEC chief and CBN governor must change. It shouldn't come from the president and the law. But our gentleman, Mr. Cardoso, he will maintain the foreign exchange stability is important, because that determines a lot of things. And then he must promote economic growth. And then these other schemes that the CBN got involved with, anchors, borrowers, rise, whatever, that is not the remit of CBN. So the CBN should do macro and microeconomic policies, that's all.
What's your take on the ways and means 27?
Well, that's excessive government spending. The CBN should not be involved in that too. That was too excessive.
So what do we do with
the Edo State governor sounded the alarm that time. Many of us dismissed him that the CBN was printing currency. You wanted to ask a question.
So, but what do we do with that? Is that supposed to go into some sunk costs, or bad debt, or what?
The thing is that you must prevail on the government not to get to that level that they would need that ways and means, because we have seen where it has led us. We are in a hole. And then you could see now, what's that saying in America, that if you are in a hole, stop digging. We are still digging further. We are sinking deeper into the hole.
Well, several
I don't
stories.
envy Mr. Cardozo at all.
Yeah, honestly.
I don't envy him.
Okay. Well, so many other stories on the front page, but look at this one. Labour to declare indefinite strike, mobilizes state councils for showdown. What's your take on this? A good number of people say, you know, what's it going to produce?
I think Labour goes on strike, they are damned. Labour does not go on strike, they are damned. So it's between the devil and the Red Sea. I don't know. I mean, the Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. I don't know what the Labour will do, because when you look at the government, all what we have had are promises and promises. Yeah. I mean, a derrick of rice or a bag of 10 kg of rice cannot solve the problem we have at hand. And the poverty is grinding and is increasing. It's grinding and increasing. Several times you see people stopping you that don't give me money, just give me food. I want to eat. And so how do we really alleviate and ameliorate the kind of problems that we have found ourselves as citizens because of this fund issue?
But then, you know,
because of the removal of subsidy.
Yeah, while of course Labour is in talks with government.
But the government has just been saying that the government has been dancing on the same spot.
What then can government really do? You know, as you said the other time.
But that now calls the question that did the government think it through? And I've always told folks in government that the problem I have with people in government in Nigeria successively is the quality of thinking. And we see that in their policies and their programs. Did the government actually thought it through? By the way, I'm for removal of the subsidy. But did the government actually think it through? Or did the government ever say that it will lead us into this kind of mess we are in?
Well, there are those who would also say it's the same thing you said about Labour that the government has to face. If you do it, if you remove it, you're damned. If you don't remove it, you're damned.
So
okay.
I just hope that the Labour, when you are striking, whether you are going on strike or you are striking an object, I hope you have enough armor to armor it very well.
At the Guardian newspaper this morning.
If Labour is between the devil and the deep blue sea, do they stop rowing? Or they will sink if they don't do anything?
I just say that I hope their armor is strong enough so that they will leave not just a scratch, they will leave a dent when they go on strike.
We'll see how that goes. Well, look at Daily Trust this morning. Experts decry government inaction as diphtheria spreads to 18 states. Kano leads as diseases kills 453, infects 7,202. Improved measures key to ending scourge. Yeah, I know you already looked at this one, but I'd like to bring your attention to this story above this lead story here. INEC to hold mock accreditation in Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa. Now, of course, you know how some people feel about the last elections, and probably with this one, because these are processes that they did before these last elections. How do you think people will respond to this mock accreditation now?
Let's challenge you. INEC faces now, or is facing INEC, is credibility issue. And INEC must hold the mirror to its face and see itself clearly for that image. And then you remember for Kogi, there have been issues with security. So I hope, by the way, I have fond attachment to Kogi. I did my youth service in Kogi years back, and I know the state very well. So I'm always interested in what goes on in the state. So I really hope that all the security threats, very high, how they will not come to pass. And then Bayelsa too, and Imo could be a little bit scary too, considering the security issues we have had in Imo. I think that was where they killed those the policemen recently. So INEC, I wish INEC all the best, but INEC faces a severe credibility issue. How they get above that, maybe these 3 elections, INEC can use them to restore credibility in their operations.
Well, that suggests that probably, who knows, there might be low turnouts for this one, but as you said, maybe the best we can do is to wish them the best. That's Daily Trust this morning.
Then we'll go on to the Nigerian Tribune, and they lead with that matter between the governor and his deputy. Twist in Akeredolu deputy feud. Assembly Speaker raises alarm over threat to life, says sacrifice place near his lodge. Deputy governor heads to court, seeks injunction against removal by Assembly. We have served deputy governor removal notice. Assembly orders chief judge to constitute panel to investigate Ayedatiwa. Now, that speaks, this matter of governors and their deputy. This is in Ondo, but we also know about the matter in Edo. What's your take on this one now?
I don't know how our country wants to deal with the problem of governors and their deputies. And by the way, I'm sure we all know this is not the first time. We've had it right from 1999. We've had the issue of BC Akonde and Iyola Omishore in Oyo State. We've had the issue of even the last person, governor of the current governor of Oyo State, Makinde. There was an issue. We've seen it in Edo. We've seen it in was it Zamfara or whatever. So it's everywhere. I think we need to redefine the position of deputy governor. And I'm sure we know again they have joint tickets when you remove one. So we need to define that position. Oftentimes such issues are linked to the aspiration of the deputy governor to succeed their bosses, which I do not think ambition is legitimate. After all, the governors themselves, some of them try for a very long period before they could be governors. So it's just the way we are. It's our politics, is in us. And I don't know whether the Constitution has enough ways and mechanism of dealing with this. I don't think so.
All right, thank you. And that's it from the Tribune.
Quick one with the Daily Independent this morning. Fuel subsidy crisis. NLC takes final decision on indefinite strike today. Again, Lalong begs Labour not to paralyze the economy, says FG has already resolved one of their demands. This is the lead story of the Daily Independent. A few things have been said about that already.
I think not to paralyze the economy further. The economy is paralyzed already. They should not paralyze it further, yeah. Because, when you have basic issue of transportation, and that's ordinary level economics, where people cannot move and goods and services cannot move, the economy is in paralysis.
Yeah. Daily Independent also has this at the bottom of the page. Of course, some protest images there from yesterday. We'll be getting into that conversation later. Nigeria records 7,202 diphtheria cases, 453 deaths in 18 states and the FCT. That story is also right there. But above the nameplate, I inherited empty treasury from my predecessor, says Taraba governor. How is that possible?
Yeah, the guy was saying that the treasury was empty. And there's an interesting angle to that story. A gentleman journalist, a junior whom I know very well, reported about a year or two back, Ayodele is his name, Samuel, and in Taraba, that the governor then, the immediate past governor now, was actually involved in some corruption cases. And the guy was detained by DSS. And then some Taraba state folks were actually saying that what does he have to do, what concerns him about their state? The evidence is out now. And so kudos to Ayodele Samuel, who did that story that time. It's about a year or two now. And yet, so I believe the current governor. Yeah.
Interesting. Quick look at the Nigerian News Direct. And it's talking about oil production. NCDMB, NNPC, IOCs sign MOU to ramp up oil production. That's the lead story of Nigerian News Direct. Targets 6 months
do you ramp up
cycle.
when you can't deal with crude oil theft? So does it not follow that the more you ramp up, the more theft?
I was actually going to ask you, how do you think this might affect our the whole forex issue?
Oh, it's because we don't have forex inflow. That's the problem. And the major way we can get forex inflow is through crude oil sale. And crude oil is being stolen. So the answer is blowing the wind. So does that not follow that if you ramp up, you are going to have more theft? Deal with the theft first.
Very interesting perspective. Well, we've spoken about this Ondo Deputy Governor dragging Akeredolu Ondo Assembly CJ to court, and a good number of other stories on the front page. As the Nigerian News Direct this morning, I'm bringing us to the end of a look at some of the dailies this morning. We've had with us Wale Fatade, who is former Assistant Managing Editor, Next Newspaper, and Commissioning Editor, The Conversation Africa. Thank you again for your time.
Good to be here.
So let's get into the details of one of the issues raised so far, right after this break.